This is a continuation of the teaching series on Jesus. Jesus is meek, but in his meekness, he has no time to tolerate ungodliness. He knows when to react and when not to act. He knows when to correct openly and when to correct secretly. He knows when to keep people and when to let them go. Matthew 21, verse 12. Jesus encourages his disciples to do what he does. He is one that lives by example. He challenges his people to read because he is also a reader. Matthew 21, verse 16. Jesus taught his disciples how to do what he did and even to do more through faith. Matthew 21, verse 21. When Jesus saw manipulation, he called it wickedness. This was when the people, tried to tempt him. He called them hypocrites because they wanted to manipulate him using their words. Any form of manipulation, any form of manipulation is called wickedness. And those that do it are hypocrites. That's the theory of Jesus. According to this theory, the hypocrite uses temptation as a tool for their manipulation. According to the theory of Jesus, hypocrites use temptation as a tool for their manipulation. Matthew 22, verse 18. Jesus firmly believes that without the knowledge of the scriptures, we will err. That is, we are likely to drift into errors, and it will be impossible for us to know the power of God. Matthew 22, verse 29. Jesus answered a very sensitive question. How do we love God? According to him, we are to love him with all our heart, our soul, and our mind. The summary is one should love God with his totality. That's what Jesus is saying. Love God with your totality. Matthew 22, verse 37. Jesus was ready to give all that he had, including himself, to see that the will of God is done through his life. He gave his disciples wine, and later he gave them his blood to drink. Can you see that? He gave his disciples bread and later gave them his body to eat. He gave them wine, which was a symbolic, representation of his blood. He gave them bread, which was a symbolic representation of his body. So Jesus was ready to give all to his disciples in order to bring them into what God has in stock for them. Matthew 26, verse 26 to 27. Jesus saw his enemy and called him friend because he knew his divine assignment. Matthew 26, verse 49 to 50. Jesus surrendered himself to be punished, not minding the pains, but his eyes was fixed on the result of his sufferings. He knew that it will please his Father in heaven, and he knew humanity will be saved. So he was ready to do anything at any time to get that done. Matthew 26, verse 57. When Jesus stood before the judges in court, he didn't try to justify himself because he knew, as good as that is, it is not God's will for him. If he had defended himself, he would not have died. And not dying is the same thing as not fulfilling the will of God for his life. So he chose to lay down his life without being forced. Matthew 27, verse 11. Jesus was crucified by spiritually blinded people. He was crucified by spiritually blind people. People, who have physical eyes but no spiritual eyes. One of the accusations they levied against him was that he called himself the King of the Jews. This was actually true, but their blindness prevented them from seeing correctly. Matthew 27, verse 37. The first statement Jesus made when he addressed his 11 disciples after his resurrection was, "All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth." This was the reward he got from laying down his life in obedience to God's will. Matthew 28, verse 18. He said, "All power is given unto me." Why? He got the reward of his obedience. Every obedience to God has a reward. You must understand that.